Alright, so I wanted to give you guys a video lecture on pedigrees. We talked about this in class today, and I still had some questions, so I wanted to extend the lesson to some of you who might need help, a little extra help with this. So what we've got right here is just simple pedigree set up, and you remember the squares are the males, the circles are the females, and if it's filled in, they are affected by whatever trait we're looking at, whether that's PKU or detached earlobes. If it's filled in, it's affected by what we're looking at. And if it's not filled in, then it is unaffected. So let's say we don't know if this is a dominant or recessive trait. All right, that's the point of these, is to figure that out, some of the point of that. And so if we are, let's say we're looking at the earlobe trait, and you either have the earlobe detached or an earlobe attached. And so we don't know whether it's on a dominant or recessive. Okay, so we don't know if it's homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, or heterozygous. But we can look at the pedigree. All right, and so let's say what's affected is the earlobe detached. And so this one right here, we know the earlobe is detached. Remember what I said in class. I said if you have two unaffected adults that have an affected child, as in this case right here, you have two unaffected adults that have an affective child. What does that mean as far as dominant or recessive? It means it is recessive. So this gives it away right here. Well, we'll just get rid of that. It's tough to write with this thing. So that means this trait is recessive because we have two unaffected adults having an affected child. Therefore, we right off the bat know that we know that this child right here, this individual, is little r, little r. All right, we know that because we just found out it's a recessive trait. We also, so we'll go ahead and we'll just keep filling in here. Little r here, little r here, so on and so forth. Okay, now what you also saw, change my color here, is that we looked at generations. So this is generation 1, this is generation 2, this is generation, guess what, 3, and finally we have generation number 4. So we have generation 1, 2, 3, and 4 set up here on the side, and that means this is individual 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the generation 1. Same thing goes with this line, same thing goes with this line, same thing goes with this line. And so if I were to ask you a question, what was the genotype of generation 2, individual number 3, we would be looking at, here's generation 2, we'd be looking at generation 3 right here. And so that's what that means. So let's get rid of some of that there. All right, so what do we know? We know that this is recessive. So we also know that each one of these has a little r, because this parent, this dad, this male, had to give a little r to every one of his children. We also know that the mom has at least a big R. All right, but we're going to leave that blank because we don't know that yet. So therefore, since these are unaffected, they also have a big R. Because they're unaffected, they have to have the dominant that helps them out. And so we've just figured out what the genotypes of all of these individuals are right here. Okay, we don't know this one right here. All right, We can assume some things, but we don't know this. All right, let's look here. So we know that this is little r, so we know that one of these parents has a little r, but we don't know which one. We know that they each have a big R, all right, but we don't know which one gave the little r. All right, there's no way of determining that at this point. You can do a genetics test or look at more family history of their parents, but we just know that one of them has a little r to give. All right, and so this rest, let's just go through this. R blank, R blank, sorry, big R blank, big R blank, big R blank. Now, with this cross, we see the little r here, little r here. We know that this is big R, little r. All right, so we know that this has a big R here. We know that this has a big R here. Blank, blank. We don't know those yet. Oh, do we? We actually do, because look at this. We've got the little r's coming from these guys, or this male. This male had to give a little r to every one of his kids, all right? And so we know those are big R, little r. All right, again, we know this is big R blank. We know this is big R blank. We know that the little r had to go with every single one of these, because of this male right here. And we also know that it had to get a big R because it's unaffected. Unaffected, unaffected, unaffected. We know this is unaffected and unaffected. And we know that this mom had to give a little R, so we know that and we know that. Okay, look at this right here. We know that little r, little r. So we know that this little r was given here, but there's another little r from this dad. And so we do know that that is a little r because you had to give a little r to this child and to this child here. What about this one here? Do we know what this allele is of this mom right here? We actually don't. We don't have the information for that because all of these children were heterozygous. So it could either be big R, homozygous dominant, or it could be heterozygous as well. We can assume some things. We can assume that it's big R, and there's little r, because that would give us all heterozygous. But that's an assumption. What about here? Do we know anything here? We just know that there's a big R given, a big R given. We know one of these has a little r, but we don't know which one. Right? So if we go back to this question, if I ask you, what is the genotype? Genotype. Man, I'm terrible at writing with this. Of generation 2, individual 3, we look at generation 2, individual 3, and we do know that it is heterozygous. And so that's how I will want you to solve this for the test on Thursday. And I hope that helps you do well on the test, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks.